right? So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So tell us when we're live, and I think we can go for it.
It's asking me if I consent to being recorded, and I noticed that I'm hesitant.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean,
too late.
We have plenty of time. It's okay. Just
well, if we start talking about it, it will be on the record. So we might as well.
Maybe it's worth it. You know, the good NVC conversation about the relevant topic is great.
I'm overjoyed to record this for the contribution to your purposes, and I have a lot of trust that if there's something that's recorded that the two of you have concerns about, we will talk about it.
Přátelé, dear friends, I'm pushing the button. I don't know what it's going to do. It's my first time.
So tell us later.
Well, I'm curious too. Will I see anything different on the Zoom, or do I need to log into Facebook in order to see what we're recording?
We are live, gentlemen.
Oh, cool.
Are you sure? How do you know?
I don't know.
All right.
I need to pinch myself.
Hey, Peter, you said you had some welcome catchphrase, so I think you can do it right now.
Yes, it's my catchphrase time, and it's good evening, Peter, and good morning, Jared. I'm welcome you both on our first time ever stream, and I'm very happy that we could make it happen. And I want to welcome our guests and viewers and our audience. I will be mostly on Facebook, and I'll be checking your statuses and your questions, and if I can manage it, so I will transfer it here for Zoom. So thank you very much, and let's start our first talk with Jared Finkelstein.
Thanks, Peter. I don't know if you need an introduction here in Czech Republic in the NBC community. I think you are already pretty famous, but for those of you who don't know, Jared is an NVC trainer from US, and that's it. He's nothing more than that.
and barely that to begin with. I see myself as a human being first, and in this particular moment, and a very touched friend to have been invited by the two of you to have this conversation and to publicize it this way. So those feel like labels I can easily take on.
Thank you. Well, as far as I know, in US you are still in quite a heavy quarantine. Here in Czech Republic, it's getting more free. So how are you? How are things in your homeland?
Well, I mean, the United States is big, and I live on the West Coast in California, in the Bay Area, specifically in Berkeley, California. And we're still sheltered in place here. We have another month of it at the end of May. They're just beginning to lift some restrictions on factory work, but restaurants and bars and movie theaters and all that are all still very closed. Our governor was really early to act in shutting down the state, and by all accounts, we were really effective in what's called flattening the curve. So our hospitals were not overrun, and we didn't see the same sort of spike in need for care like they did, say, in New York City and New York State. And it's been, it gets cliche after a while. So many people are saying so many similar things, but we've had those experiences here. It's a little isolating. It's a lot of time on Zoom. There's a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability about the state of the world and what's going to happen. And there's, for me also, a lot of reading in the news about what's happening in other parts of my own country that, the reports paint one picture that I have a lot of trust that if I was actually there, it would look and feel different than what I'm reading on the news. But certainly I'm in touch with people in different states where things are opening up more and quicker, and that brings a lot of fear and concern and a worry about how much personal responsibility and personal safety people need to make. And then there's a lot of debate here about privilege and who has the means to work from home and switch their career to being able to work from home and have that sense of security and that possibility, and who are the workers who are really dependent on in-person work who don't have that same sense of freedom of choice. So it's a big, complicated, very heartbreaking, confusing moment we're in for sure. And for me personally, I just notice when I'm not sort of really anxious, I'm really grateful that I fall into one of those spaces where I have a relative amount of security and stability at the moment, and that I'm not sick, and my immediate family is not sick, and I'm grateful for that.
If I remember correctly, you were born in New York City, right?
No, actually,
no.
I was born. I lived in New York for a while, but I was born in Massachusetts. Yeah, but I lived there for a couple of years. But I do have a lot of close friends in New York City, and I get a lot of reports.
That's why I was asking, because New York was hit pretty badly. Yeah. So if you are in touch with friends in New York, and how are they doing?
You know, again, so far I'm really lucky. The people I'm closest to have avoided catching COVID. I don't have a close friend with it. I have some secondary sort of circles of friends who are friends of friends who certainly have it. But my immediate community are all healthy, and it sounds like it was really, really frightening in New York. Yeah. As one can imagine, I mean, it's just, if you've ever been to New York City, it's a big metropolis and very dense, and people share the same banisters and walk on the same sidewalks. They're very close to one another. It's it's a dense population, and so it makes a lot of sense that it would spread as much as it did there.
Yeah, and well, so it's. Well, I'm a bit calmer now when I hear you speaking about it. You're okay and your friends are okay. That's nice to hear, really.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of the many paradoxes. Like I feel personally grateful, and for as grateful as I am, there's just as much heartbreak. It's not like my life has been untouched by this. Certainly on an economic level. And then, yeah, I mean, I do know people who have died. I do know people who know people who have died. I do know people who are sick. It's not that invisible.
And how is, well, because you are important part of the NVC community, nonviolent communication community in the US, are there any like systematical reactions from the NVC community, or what's happening among our people?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a language thing or a semantic thing. I use the word network more than community to describe sort of the NVC network. Like I don't, for me, there's something much more immediate about the people I have in my community. I actually go through important rituals with them and occasions of my lives. And there's certainly people who I share an NVC passion with, who I would call in my community. But as far as a network goes, like a movement, a larger sort of body, there's the Center for Nonviolent Communication, obviously, and the NVC Academy, and then the various organizations like One Big Circle and Family Heart Camp and more. And then we're all sort of share this purpose of teaching and spreading this practice called nonviolent communication. And I think, as you could imagine, that project and the sustainability of that project has been hit really, really hard by this.
So basically, NVC in a lot of cases means meeting with a lot of people in the same room. So
and meeting people in the same room, renting venues that for the purpose of meeting, and those venues facing increased pressure to close or even mandate to close. So a lot of summer programming has been canceled. The Center for Nonviolent Communication, which puts on 9-day international intensive trainings as one of its business models, every single IIT has been canceled for 2020.
I myself was wanting to go to IIT in Hungary, and it's also probably closed. So Europe was hit as well with this.
And then, as you can imagine, so as trainers are not working as much, it's harder for them to give the dues that they like to contribute to support the Center for Nonviolent Communication. And the Center for Nonviolent Communication is now not putting on IITs, which has been the source of its income. So the sort of central body, the certifying body of NVC is really facing a sort of existential financial crisis right now, and is in a very heartfelt dialogue with its trainer community about how to sort of restore a real depth of connection where there's a sense of partnership to support that organization at its time. And I imagine that will ripple out like it is right now. If people are feeling inspired to donate to the Center for Nonviolent Communication, you can go to their website. They certainly would welcome that at this time. And then the other thing I was going to say, much like what we're doing right now, is there's a real sort of creative push to transfer from in-person training opportunities to online training opportunities, like with Zoom. And the NVC Academy, which is also an international forum, but predominantly in the States, recently put on an online NVC online conference, which had traditionally been done in person in Southern California, but it was done online this time. And about 6 of us trainers sort of offered a number of sessions over the course of a weekend. And this was a real success. I think we had, over 500 people or so register for it from all over the world. And since then, I've heard of another body that's planning to organize something like this. I, of course, am going to offer some trainings in the Czech Republic in May to compensate for not being able to come there in person. And so I think that's the trend right now as people sort of scramble, is to move into this online. And it's an interesting thing. I won't lie. Like there's also more availability on the receiving end. Like if I had a choice between going to an NVC workshop online or in person, if those 2 options were available to me, which was the case before the pandemic for a lot more people than not, I would go to an in-person one, and only people who really couldn't go to in-person ones would take advantage of the NVC Academy or things like that. And now a lot of people are at home and not in school and not at work, and struggling in their relationships with their family or with their friends or with just themselves. And so there's a rich opportunity too for people who offer this work to reach people who maybe in the past were less able or willing to study.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing is happening for us, because me and Peter, we organized 2 online classes of NVC, like for beginners. And some participants said, yeah, I wanted to go to in-person training, but I can't. But I think like 3/4 of them, most of the participants said, oh, I would never go to Brno for a training because it's too far for me. So I'm very happy that this is organized. And I think we were able to touch people who wouldn't come to our training. So now it's also, as you said, it's a creative push for us. And now we are planning to keep on doing online seminars, because, well, obviously there are people who are not able to come in person. So, and I didn't know it. I thought that that doing NVC online is very limited and it doesn't make very much sense, and it's just halfway. But obviously it makes sense even in this way.
It's, again, I enjoy language, obviously. So, for so long now, there's been this, I think, ache or this longing for people who are passionate about nonviolent communication for its teachings and for its practice to go viral, to be spread, in this wide, the way that just, and it's funny to me that it's taken a virus, literally a virus going viral, becoming a pandemic, to create conditions where more people are online, and the possibility of NVC going viral has increased a little bit. So, I mean, obviously there's a little tongue in cheek there, but it is fascinating to me, this computer technological based way of transferring this training, and how there is a moment right now. It feels like a little bit of a reset for a lot of people to re-examine their priorities, and it's sort of a fascinating choice point. Like, do you want to move more towards surrendering into what chaos is in the world, or do you want to move a little bit more towards reimagining what a compassionate society that is dedicated to meeting more needs could look like, and how do you skill yourself in creating that possibility?
And so what's your experience with doing online, with working online? How is it for people, and how is it for you, this change of work?
It's humbling, deeply humbling, and a new learning curve for sure. I'm stunned at a quality of intimacy and closeness that is really possible when the technology is working. you know, I often remember being a little boy when we were traveling as a family on trips, and I would stare out the window. You know, there was no internet when I was a kid, and so on long car trips, I would look out the window and watch the trees and the highway whiz by. And now, you know, if I imagine being cooped up in my apartment for over 2 months, just staring out the window, like I would really have to conjure up my inner child of Jared and the ability to just entertain myself by staring out the window. Instead, though, we have the internet. It's stunning to me. And even right now, as the three of us are talking, like I'm looking at your faces, and there's a closeness that I certainly enjoy. And I've noticed this a lot in my classes, that when a class is over and the Zoom call ends, just how jarring that moment is. Like it's a moment of awareness of just how connected I was to someone on the other side of a screen, that I went from sort of really being in their world and then being in my world to suddenly now alone again in my apartment, and not knowing like what that experience was like for them or for me, and not having that sort of softer untangling that sometimes happens in the hallways after a workshop is wrapping up. So it's humbling and exciting in a certain respect. And a lot of empathy on my calls, a lot of empathy during these trainings for people's experience of craving touch, craving closeness, craving being in the same physical proximity of people. And one of the things I'm most moved by is, you know, I think there's a lot of grief in the world right now because of how many people are dying. And I think it is ancient and primal for human beings when they grieve to be with their loved ones, to be in physical closeness. That's why, you know, the funeral is such a ritual of people coming together and being close. And so it's been a lot of empathy for that really intense experience of being alone in one's grief, and how to connect across that. And that's where I notice Zoom is got some deficiencies. Like when someone is in that sort of a pain, sometimes they don't want just to be looked at on a screen, especially if you're looking at yourself at the same time. you want to hug, you want to be held, you want to be next to someone.
Yeah, well, in my experience, I think I experienced similar things, that I was surprised that the connections are possible through video calling, and they are quite okay. If it works, it's okay. You really can connect quite well with another person. But it's for me as a trainer, it's very difficult to create, I think almost impossible to create really safe space online, because every now and then the connection is unstable and someone has to leave, and someone has a cat who just walks around and kids at home and much more things. So it's very difficult to really find an intimacy that could be found on in-person workshops.
I agree, and also I would add like this notion of power sharing, really being power with, like is you know, it's just a fascinating question. Like, how do you create the experience of that? Like, there is a little bit more shared power in that everyone has the means of leaving the call at the same time or staying on the call at the same time. Like the interfaces have some call. If there's a waiting room, you have these two buttons that pop up when someone wants to join, to accept them into the call or to not accept them into the call. And it's an awesome responsibility. Like, and the buttons are right next to each other. I have a lot of worry that one day I'm going to accidentally click one. But it's just one of many ways where like there is something about this dynamic. Like when it's working, you forget it's there. But when it's not working, when there's some sort of hiccup in the technology, it's profoundly disconnecting between you and whoever you're trying to build a connection with. And so much of NVC is about that experience of connection, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing those experiences.
Yeah, well, for folks who come to these two classes in the Czech Republic, we'll get to experiment together. I mean, I can't guarantee it'll be a smooth ride, but it'll certainly be one that we explore honestly.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely get to those classes, and I want to ask you to say more about them. But before that, I was just wondering if there are any questions from Facebook.
difficulties. I think yes. Every 4 minutes our stream is going down, so I just make parts. We have right now like 4 parts, so there are no questions, but it's working. We have some comments, and there are like 10 people watching even the third part, so it's really good for us.
Great.
So,
for you 10 people out there watching, thank you so much for bearing with us. We're grateful you're here, and I hope I get to see you online in some other capacity soon.
So, gentlemen, proceed, and I will try to handle technicalities. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and if a question does get through, just blurt it out.
So, well, maybe I would ask you to talk more about your classes in Czech Republic, because we are looking forward to meeting you in person, but it's not possible, of course. So, yeah. What is the alternative? Where can we meet you online for Czech audience?
Yeah. So let me just say that I've been really lucky for I think it's going on 6-7 years now to be invited back every spring to offer some work in the Czech Republic, and it's something I look forward to every year, and I'm incredibly grateful for the organizers who bring me back every year. The organization that brings me back is called Druna, and I think their primary they offer a lot of trainings in their workshop spaces, but their primary work is contact improvisation. And as I think you could all imagine, contact improvisation is a really hard thing to offer during a pandemic and during a time of enforced social distancing, because it's very much based on two people being very close to one another. So they're really struggling, I think, to keep their doors open and to pay their rental spaces. And while I don't imagine my workshops have brought a tremendous amount of financial relief to them over the years, I do get invited back every year, and not being able to come this year, besides just my own sadness about not getting to see friends and not getting to contribute NBC to a part of the world that I'm incredibly fond of, I also care about this organization. So they and I got talking about what we could offer instead. And the idea was to cancel the trainings that we had planned and offer some supplement for this May. And what we settled on was on the 16th of May, I think at 7 o'clock my time. Peter, what did we figure that was?
16.
Okay, your time. To offer a few hours online for people who are doing this work already in the Czech Republic, who evaluate themselves as trainers, or people who are have been playing around with NVC for a while and want to explore topics that are sometimes called a little bit more advanced. So there's an assumed familiarity with sort of the basic form of NVC for this call, and we will take requests and kind of co-create the content of the call, and really work on topics and explore issues that people who have questions and want to dive into. So an advanced practice group would be the succinct way of describing that one. And then we'll do a pair of workshops on the 23rd and the 24th of May. Same time, that's 16, starting at 16 in Czech time. And that will be 2 parts to it. And the topic of this workshop is on fear. Really, how do we relate to fear in a way that's compassionate? And we thought this would be a timely topic, given how much has been disrupted in the world, how much predictability might be something that people are really longing for, how much safety might be something that people are really longing for. And so to spend 2 days really looking at the process of nonviolent communication, for how we navigate strong feelings of fear, and how we separate our feelings from our thoughts, how we get clear about observations about what's happening right here and right now, what meaning we make of the experience we're having, and how to try to relate to that compassionately, and how to come up with powerful requests for seeking the support and the in the moment presence that would most contribute to your heart during these times of intensity.
And those workshops are also for beginners, so everybody who's maybe watching this stream can join?
Yeah, the weekend workshop on 23rd, 24th is for anyone at any level, as we would say. And one of the things that might challenge the call is technology. We'll see. The other might be expense. And Druna obviously we're asking for money for these workshops in no small part. I think of it at this point as a fundraiser to support Druna, to support me during this sort of intense time of uncertainty. And I'm clear that we want anyone who wants to be at these calls to be able to come. And so if financially what's being asked for really feels outside of your means at this time because of the pandemic, I highly encourage you to get in touch with the organizers at Druna and make that clear and see if some sort of life-sustaining number can be arrived at between you and them.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question came into my mind. I was wondering if, because I believe a lot of people know you as a trainer of nonviolent communication and as a person to go to with some topics. And I was wondering if there are people who are asking you maybe for advice or for an opinion, or what should they do in these hard times? Are you asked? And if so, what are your answers?
Yeah, I mean, I know how to answer that question from a practice point of view, like how to support sort of thinking through it in a way that ideally helps people come to choiceful, compassionate decisions. And, it's not to oversell it, but it's a lot about taking stock of what's happening at this time, and noticing how you feel and noticing if you're judging those feelings and noticing if those judgments of those feelings are wanting things, and really doing a sort of thorough inner analysis, and then getting connected to needs and really, making choices that are rooted in that sense of self-knowing. I'm doing this to bring myself comfort. I'm doing this to bring myself peace. I'm doing this to bring myself rest. I'm doing this to bring myself sustainability. Like having a direct sense of what life-serving quality you're making actions from, I think radically increases resilience, because sometimes our best efforts don't result in results that we're happy with. And the potential of that becoming self-blame or blame for others and taking you to less choiceful states is really ripe right now. Whereas if I'm clear, I'm on this call right now to contribute to sustainability, or I'm on this call right now to contribute to just make more love in the world, whatever it is. If I got off this call and found out something tragic happened, I want to be able to grieve that with the sense of real inner clarity that what I was doing was my best attempt at this beautiful gift in the world during this difficult time, and now I've learned and grown from it.
Cool.
So that's a process advice. As far as like what job to get, I have no idea. As far as where to invest your money, I have no idea. Like I'm in the same quagmire and doing those same practices to try to find those answers. I am chuckling at like a number of the choices I made early on. I was traveling at the end of February, and I was stressed and anxious even while I was doing it at the time. And 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, once we found out that the virus had already started circling at that time, I look back and I just wonder, like, what, I know what needs I was meeting by saying yes to those travels, but what part of myself was I really ignoring that was scared even then? Yeah.
Cool. Well, yes, thank you for this interview. We can talk a bit more, but I don't know what time do we have. Peter, you're the timekeeper. What time is it?
And did we get any more questions?
We have 2 minutes, and yeah, we have quite time. We don't have questions others than technical, because our stream has now 5 parts, and we skipped some phrases. So I promise people to upload then the whole recording that we are making. So this is, well, technicalities. So
yeah.
Well,
I hope those people who are struggling with the technology right now are being kind to us and kind to themselves. And I imagine it's really quite frustrating to want to sort of just have a clean connection and to listen to this interview and to feel sort of swept up in it. And I have a lot of compassion for the annoyances of the disruptions.
Well, to wrap up our conversation, I was just wondering if there is something you'd like to say to us or the Czech audience, or something you'd like to say as a goodbye, or motivation for another month of our life. Words from Jared Finkelstein.
Honestly, I'm just, it's more of a self-revealing. Like, I'm so bummed to not come in person this May. Like, I especially being on this call, I feel even more moved about it now. Like, this is one of the ways that this Zoom connection, it can be so powerful. Like, seeing both of your faces is a much more visceral reminder that I won't see you in person this May. And, it's been now 4 or 5 years. I get to spend a few days every May with you. And it feels like a real sorrow to not have that opportunity. So, I'm grateful to be able to offer these online classes. I'm grateful to Druna. I'm grateful to your support in getting the word out about them. Like, I'm glad to sort of have some of those contribution and continuity needs satisfied in this way. But I'm mourning in a really more intense way now than even I was before this call, that the world has changed in this way, that making it so much more difficult to see you all in person.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same here. I mean, I had the privilege to host you here in our house when we were in Czech Republic in Brno, and it's always been so much fun. I mean,
me too.
I'm going to miss that. I mean, we have to. I hope next year will be different, or maybe we can schedule your visit some other time. And I'm honestly, I'm very much looking for it.
I think we should. I'd like to, like, after the workshop on the 24th, like, get on a Zoom call with a bunch of us and just try to recreate chill time in the spirit of some of our past sort of post workshop unwindings. And I think it won't be a fully satisfying substitute, but it would be a delight nonetheless.
Well, we'll do our best.
Sounds good.
I want to tell you all of an idea I have. I've been sharing it with people, and I'm curious to hear what you think. But so many people are spending so much of these last few months on Zoom, as we are right now. And so Zoom, we're seeing people in their boxes, and they're in other parts of the world. And there's this tension between being so connected and being so far apart, which is what we've talked a lot about on this call. So I've had this idea that after the pandemic, if and when things return to normal, that I would open a pub, and the name of the pub would be the Zoom Room. And that the whole premise of the pub would be, you'd go to this place and you'd bring your laptop with you, and you'd get a drink, and you'd sit at a table, and you'd open up a laptop, and you'd log into a Zoom link that everybody in the bar is also on. So you get to drink your beer and continue to connect to people in this exact same way of which we've all gotten used to over the last few months. However, if, like, you and Peter are like, oh, hey, it's really nice talking to you, and then you start chatting in the little chat below, and you strike up a conversation, you now have the opportunity, if it goes well, to close your laptop, get up, walk across the bar, and actually sit across from the person that you've been connecting with on Zoom at the Zoom Room, but now in person.
I think you should start marketing this idea now, because
it just started. You're my first.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think it would be a great dating app, even.
Yeah, come to the Zoom, or our first date. Come to the Zoom Room. All right. Well, you now are officially my business partners, and we will we'll have to continue this exploration as well.
I'd love to invest some money in your idea, but, well, honestly, I've been also touched with the quarantine, so I'm not working much. No. But I'm definitely, I can spread the word. I'm going to make a banner, and I'm going to walk the streets and get people to go there.
All and every contributions are welcome.
Knowing your situation, Peter, you could be the first guest there.
Yeah.
So it does raise a question for me. I mean, I imagine both of you have been profoundly impacted by the quarantine and your own sense of sustainability. And is there something that, that I could do as a colleague of yours in this NVC world to contribute to your sustainability and contribute to your support in the important work that you're doing?
I think what we are doing right now is sufficient support for us, because it means that we could talk together and we could upload it sometime to other people, and we will see.
Yeah.
Do you?
Well,
go ahead.
I just wanted to say that since we can't do many in-person workshops, we started to do more podcasts. So that's a medium that is available right now. So if anybody is listening to our podcast, please do. It makes us happy that it's a way to get through to you even in this pandemic.
You know, and I said it before, and I'm happy to say it again. Like, you know, obviously I'm pretty connected to a lot of other trainers here in the United States, and you know, there is the cultural difference and there is the translations. But if there's some way that, you know, helping you connect to the network that I'm connected to find more guests, to find more people to interview, I'm really happy to explore that with you. I love how generous what you do for the Brno and the Czech community, and if we can just provide and create more content for you to reach out to them, it's joyfully offered.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, and let's wrap up slowly. So thank you. Thanks for making time and starting the day with us. We are ending the day with you, so. I mean,
it would be weird. It would be weird to record this every day, but we should start our days and end our days more often doing this. It's fun.
Great. Well, thank you, Jared, and thanks everybody who are watching this and who will be watching this this video. Have a great day.
Yeah, guys. Bye, Jared.
Bye, everyone.